All right, hello everyone. Today I am going live here on YouTube and I'm going to be talking about healing karmic cyclic patterns. To uplift humanity and about the multi-dimensional ways that is currently happening in our time. So, hi, my name is Nancy Rebecca with Intuitive Mind. And I've been working with the human energy field and all the different dimensions of energy fields and how it impacts the human energy field for 30 years now. So, good morning and welcome, welcome, welcome. Where are you tuning in from and what are you drinking this morning? So, I have my regular cup of Joe with my little mermaid cup. So, hello, Rebecca and Dawn and Leanne and just really been tuned in also to all the fires that we've been having. And of course, we've been having a lot of, political, oh my gosh, just so much politics on the news right now. And, so many world events that are happening. So we're going to be touching into that a little bit more. Hi, Diana. So, and Heather from the Okanagan. Wow. So yeah, I've been really watching that area a lot, Heather. So glad you could tune in. All right. So I was thinking about last week when I went live, and it was so complex. And I think even the complexity just had me turned upside down all week. And then we have another complex subject today. And I imagine we're going to continue to have complex conversations about the spiritual world, about the energy world, about how we are being influenced by the frequencies around us, to include the sun frequency and the moon frequency. We're going to have a full moon coming up soon, but we're also influenced by the frequencies of the person sitting next to us on the bus, the person, at work, our family. We are influenced by all of these things. And today I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but what I'm going to talk about more is how are we being influenced in a more expanded way in humanity, that where we are collectively together healing the collective wound of humanity, of which there is a really big one. However, as Spirit reminds me, that collective wound is not as big as it used to be. Now, we might feel really wounded on many levels, but Spirit is always great at reminding all of us that it is getting better, even if it still hurts. So in this talk, I'm going to explore current and past cycles of historical patterns from a perspective history repeating itself. We're going to talk about karma and what that means. It can be really a confusing type thought, but historically, there's a lot of cultures that still strongly and highly believe that karma can influence our human energy field, as well as the collective consciousness on the earth. And then I'm going to finish it off with how can we kind of heal? What are some things that we can do rapidly to assist and help these cyclic patterns for the collective wound, which we will do in a meditation. So good morning, everyone. So again, healing karmic energies, navigating the multi-dimensional unity. So last week I talked about how there are layers of the dimensions that are collapsing, and they're collapsing because the frequency and the vibration on the earth is going up, and that is a good thing. However, it doesn't feel so good. I don't know how many of you who've been following a spiritual path for a long time, but if you've ever gone to some type of workshop, or you've gone to this weekend retreat or a vision quest, how you think it's just going to be lovely on all levels, and then your stuff comes up. And it comes up big time. And maybe you're not so nice to now all those wonderful spiritual people around you, or they're not so nice to you. And there's a lot of muck going on. So that happens all the time in spiritual communities. It happens all the time in the world. And it's happening right now at a global level where all of our stuff is coming up on many, many dimensions, but we wouldn't even be collapsing those other dimensions. They wouldn't even be collapsing if we hadn't finished that chapter of the book. So again, this is a good thing. It's a good thing. Rebecca says. And then you run out crying. Yes. So here in the United States, because I do live in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, but even in the world, the division in our beliefs between us are palpable. I mean, we are willing to die for our beliefs that might not even be true. I mean, this is kind of what we're going to be talking about. They're palpable, it's uncomfortable. A lot of people are expressing, I don't care if your feelings are hurt about this. I don't care if you don't like how I think. I don't care if it's how I'm thinking sounds totally ridiculous. But the bottom line is, and what I know with working with clients, a lot of clients for 30 years, people really care. At that deeper level, people really do care. It's your defense mechanisms that make you think that you don't care. I don't care what you think about me, but deep down, we do care what other people think about us, and we do care about truly how someone else is doing. But what I do realize is in times of war or in times of disasters like the fires that are happening right now, and people are helping each other to evacuate and pack up. People are feeding, the firefighters. There's all that happening. No one's stopping to say, what is your religious beliefs? What are your political beliefs? None of that's happening. It's like there's a need for caring and action for caring, and that takes place. But this is a cyclic pattern where we can become very divided, and then it takes a either man-made disaster or a natural disaster to bring us together. So this is what I'm talking about, that kind of karmic cycle where we are moving towards a point where we can be caring and kind to each other, and we don't need a disaster to help push us into that situation. Wouldn't that be nice? And that does require a little bit of consciousness. So it's a good thing we have a whole lot of consciousness going on. Yeah. As Wilma says, what others think about us is none of our business. That's absolutely true. However, when someone is far too much thinking about what you're doing, their consciousness is not in their own backyard. And that's the problem. So let's keep going. So as I said, given the opportunity, we will always want to help. So in our expansive consciousness, as frequency rises, it is pulling up old, deeply buried karmic patterns, historical crimes, corruptions, and abuses seem to be accelerating. Now, I'm always saying I'm doing a lot of healing in not just in my city, not just in my neighborhood, but in my county, sometimes in my state. But it seems like the more the healing that is happening, the more violent crime seems to be on the rise. So does that mean that the healing that I'm doing is not doing any good? Does it mean that violence is winning? Well, from that spiritual perspective, and that's what I'm encouraging all of us to do today, is just for a moment tap into that spiritual perspective, is that it is working. It just doesn't look very pretty right now. So as I keep kind of healing, bringing in a lot of healing to the county that I live in, yeah, the violence is on the rise. But it's my perspective. So you don't need to share in my perspective, but it's my perspective that, oh, good. These old karmic cyclic patterns for the past couple of 100 years are starting to come to the surface to be healed and to be cleared. And here in Washington State, we have a lot to answer for in that karmic wound, the collective wound that we have caused in the last couple of 100 years. And so it's been buried and now it's coming to the surface to be healed. But for those who may or may not know it, probably don't know it at a conscious level, but at a spiritual level, they can be acting out these illusionary patterns to help them heal as well. And so what I'm talking about here is criminals. So you can have a person who's participating in a crime, and what we think of at this 3D level is, they're unconscious, they don't care about the world, all they want to do is hurt and harm other people. And then you've got people who talk about the patterns. Well, if they hadn't been hurt and harmed, they wouldn't want to hurt or harm someone else. But at these higher dimensional spiritual levels, the concepts are, can be some of the highest spiritual beings have agreed to turn over the darkest of the dark to heal it. Now that can really shake your tree, right? It's like, whoa, okay, I hadn't thought about that before. Or I remember, when Spirit said to me once, that those who have alcohol addiction, or drug addiction, that they're working out the cyclic patterns for the entire family. So for us at this 3D realm, we can look at that and say, wow, they're struggling with addiction, and they may not have this strong sense of self to be able to recover. And yet it can, from the spiritual perspective, when they show me this kind of higher bird's eye view, it's like, oh no, they are very highly oriented to an expanded state of consciousness, but they're coming into the human body to work out those cycles of addiction. So this is where we are going. These are concepts that are held in other cultures. And so this is just like a spiritual sampler platter, where you just get to kind of get a little taste to see if you can look at life from that different perspective. It certainly does give us cause for pause to say, hey, we're all spiritual beings, no matter what cyclic pattern we are working out of. So, unraveling karmic threads. So Spirit showed me, oh my God, Spirit gives me these symbols and these images. So they said, this is what you're talking about today, Nancy. So they're saying, okay, so we're in this dark night of the soul. We're in this, this kind of dark, we are in the dark ages. According to this 26,000 year cycle, we are moving out of the dark ages. We're moving into the golden ages. So you can put that into your Google search engine, 26,000 year cycles of golden years. And anyway, you could put that in and there's be tons of information that will come up. And I've been reading about this since, gosh, around 2012, I think I really started reading about it. And it's, I still don't think I can totally get the concept, but this is kind of what they're talking about. So what Spirit's showing me is a towel, and you take the towel and you just rip it, and that rip goes all the way down the towel. So the fibers, you've ripped the fibers. So this is what violence and hatred and, and murder and just some really dark stuff being played out. And that's ripping the fabric of society. And then what Spirit said was, and then you have society that comes together to start weaving that tear together. And in a sense, because of that additional weaving, makes that cloth stronger. And then there's this surge of violence again and hardship, the dark cycles. and it rips again, but this time it doesn't rip as far because the cloth is a little bit stronger. And then it gets weaved again with these kind of golden threads, and then the next rip and the next rip until eventually the cloth is so strong it can no longer rip. So what Spirit is showing us is like from this higher dimensional perspective, it's like there's only like this much more of the tea towel ripping effect that you all have to go through. So Spirit's always great about showing how far we've come, even if it hurts. And right now we are all suffering under that. Um, the consciousness wound of the world. Okay. So karma, what is karma? Karma is cause and effect, cause and effect. So you make a decision and then you have to live with the responsibility of that decision. So you can have little decisions that you make that maybe are not in the ultimate realm of happiness and joy and harmony and peace. Then you may have a kind of a kickback from that you're going to have to do something to bring that back into balance. So yeah, all right. So that can be that karma of taking responsibility for your actions and then bringing it back into balance to balance that karma. So karma, we often think here in the West that it's always a negative thing, but it's not. If you have a lot of good things happening in your life, that's just called, oh, it's because of your karma, good things are happening to you. If you have a lot of bad things happening, then in some cultures they believe, well, that's your karma, that you are attempting to resolve some old responsibilities. And in the karmic cycles of some cultures, they'll go back into past lives, hundreds of years of past lives, and your cyclic pattern of coming back over and over and over again. Oh, I didn't get to finish business in my last lifetime to resolve this karmic pattern that I had. So I'm going to come back again and resolve this. But now I want to talk about this at a bigger level. And again, I'm not saying that this is true. I'm not saying it's factual. There is no way we can understand this concept from a human perspective. But what I can tell you is for some people who believe in this, it helps them to find some levels of peace in how they live in life. So it's like if you want to maintain balance, that karmic balance, then for those who believe in that, they're going to do positive things to keep their karmic balance at a high level frequency. And so karma just means cause and effect. You take an action that's either, if it's positive, it's going to have a positive karmic effect. If it's negative, it's going to have a negative karmic effect. But I'm not just talking about personal things because we're moving into the unity consciousness, we have to move out of that personal range. I'm always talking to my students about we are entering this time where we no longer have time to contemplate our navel. And what I mean by that is we've gone through, 30, 40 years of patterns of processing why we are the way we are. I am the way I am. Like I remember I had an old friend who was supposed to go to the Olympics and he injured his shoulder and had to have surgery and wasn't able to go to the Olympics. And I remember he's since passed, so you will hear me talk about him in past tense. He had a pretty miserable life because the cyclic pattern was, if I hadn't hurt my shoulder, I could have been a great person. If I hadn't hurt my shoulder, I would have done great things. If I hadn't hurt my shoulder. So that's what I mean by contemplating your navel, where there's one segment of your life that you just can't let go of that impacts everything. So remember that self-fulfilling prophecy, what you think is what you are. So what he kept saying was, I could have been great, but I can't now. And so no matter how much his spirit tried to help him to become great, he couldn't because he kept focusing on that shoulder injury. So look in your own life, do a life responsibility review. What is it that you keep pulling up to the surface over and over and over again? And it's like, I could have been happy, but this happened, So, but now let me take it to a global level. What we are witnessing here in the United States in this great divide, it's not just happening here, it's happening all over the world, is that these karmic patterns of political strife are showing up. So when I was looking at, and when I say I'm looking at, it's from a clairvoyant psychic perspective. I get curious about something, and then I go into meditation and I take a look at the cyclic patterns, the energetic frequencies of that situation. So I'm going to talk about Russia and Ukraine. So I was very curious because I was so mad, that it's like the big bully is going to hurt, the innocent little child. And I'm not saying that that's not happening, but I was pretty angry about it. Now, that means I wasn't totally in my spiritual perspective, but that's okay because my body needs to express its feelings. It needs to express what it's feeling. Even if it's unconscious, it needs to express it. But what I found when I was looking at the patterns, it was like, holy smokes, this cycle of patterns has been going on for a couple of thousand years. So it didn't just, Ukraine just didn't wake up one day, or Russia didn't just wake up one day and say, we're going to attack Ukraine. There's a cyclic pattern. Remember, ripping the cloth, sewing it together, ripping the cloth, sewing it together. And so when they went to war and they fought before over and over and over again, those patterns linger. So the humans that were involved in those patterns may be long gone, but those karmic energetic patterns still float in the air or are buried in the earth. And so then what can happen is that you're walking the earth and then suddenly you start kind of working through those karmic patterns. Or from the spiritual perspective, they would say you chose to come to earth to help heal and resolve this karmic societal humanity wound, that you've devoted your spiritual life to healing that wound once and for all, so it no longer rips. So this is what I'm talking about at this level. And again, it can be really challenging for people to say that's a load of crap. And it absolutely can be. So just letting you know, another way to spiritually look at some of the cyclic patterns that are happening. So I did the same thing with our US government. And I was just like, what the heck is happening? And so I started looking at the cyclic patterns. And then I went back through history and I was like, holy smokes, what's happening right now in our political arena happened 40, 50 years ago, happened 50 years ago before that, happened 50 years ago before that, and before that. And that's when I was like, whew, we need to change the cyclic pattern. And there is an easy way to do this, but we need to change that pattern, because if we don't correct it and do it the right way now, in 50 years, our future generations are going to have to go through this all over again. So this is what I'm talking about. Does this make sense? Is it kind of making a little sense to anybody? So Kathleen is asking the question, so does this mean that you have to work things out in the 3D world to heal the patterns spiritually? Well, Kathleen, that's a great segue for me to talk about this. So let me just talk about the different cultures. And then I will talk about that, because you do have choices. You always have choices. But it doesn't mean you're going to choose it. Okay. So in the Bhagavad Gita, which is an Hindu text, the ancient Indian text that explores various spiritual themes, including the concept of karma and shaping human lives. It provides insights into relationships between actions and consequences as you make your journey to self-realization. I was never sure about that word. What is self-realization? It's like, well, just remembering who you are as spirit. That's what it means, the bottom line. The Tao Te Ching is about Taoism, and the text where Lao Tzu delves into the concepts of the Tao way. So they're still talking about how our actions and intentions, your actions and intentions, the government's actions and intentions, Russia and Ukraine's actions and intentions, and how it influences the natural order of things. So this is what happens when we have these cycles of this kind of karmic wound, humanity wound that we all share. What happens is that it is going against the natural order of how things should go. So that's the Tao Te Ching. The Tibetan Book of the Dead talks about Bardo, talks about the journey of the souls through various stages of death, exploring past actions as the soul moves through its future transitions. So all of these different texts talk about this. Yeah. Oh, how come I miss the... Oh, in the Native American tradition, they have similar traditions, and where they go through the karmic patterns of knowing and being responsible for. So in the indigenous cultures, they really think about what's going to happen now and how is it going to impact the future before they take action. So there's this level of consciousness that they maintain on a regular basis, knowing that everything I do, but they take it a bit further where they know their karmic decision, their decision right now is going to affect 7 generations in the future. So can you imagine everything that you do today that you think about is going to impact 7 generations in the future? But that also means you are being impacted by 7 generations in the past. So you could be living the best life, but you could have an ancestor that lived 5 generations back that was a murderer, and so you're wondering, why are you having this upheaval in your life? And so this is kind of what they call when you're kind of taking on these patterns, either for your family or from a past life. Just your own karma that you're having to deal with. But we keep in this talk today, I'm talking about the collective in that larger way. Okay, let's see here. Just want to jump. So my father always says, if you want to know your future, look to the past. And this is exactly what I feel like screaming in my head sometimes, because it's like I'm watching our government. I'm like, no, don't do that, because I so do not want that pattern to repeat itself 50 years from now. So as I said, my father, but Albert Einstein said, for those of us who believe in physics, the distinction between the past, the present, and the future is only a stubborn, persistent illusion. So there's a lot of cultural where they talk about we are living in illusion. We're living within our belief system that may or may not even be true. And the only way you're going to know those is through consciousness. So Kathleen was talking about that. Okay, I've already talked about. So I say, let's say there's a murder. Okay, should I throw some really curveballs at you? I'm just going to throw a couple of curveballs. You can let them pass by. They don't have to land. But these are concepts that I think about and I have conversations with Spirit about. But it's my truth. It doesn't need to be your truth. All right. So let's say that there's a murderer in your family line. Then the murderer takes, oh wait, let me go up in my notes, sorry. Cyclic patterns repeat themselves until the pattern's resolved. I've already talked about that. And in a family, such as an early pregnancy, a teenage pregnancy, often we know that that teenage pregnancy will repeat itself until it resolves out. It finally stops cycling. That pattern stops cycling through. We know a lot of situations like that. This might be your situation. But we also want to talk about alcoholism and drugs, where it will repeat that cycle in the family until it finally resolves. So we must attempt to look at the healing taking place rather than holding that old pattern, that old state of pain in an unresolvable state. I can't see you, but raise your hand if every day you blame your father or your mother for their alcoholism and the damage that it caused you as a young child. I'm not saying it doesn't cause damage, because remember, at the physical level, you are still hurt, you are still harmed. But how the cyclic pattern can change is when you can, I don't even say you have to forgive your parents for their decisions. But what I'm going to encourage you to do is look at their parents and look at their parents' parents and their parents' parents. And often what you will see, if you even know that cycle, you will see by the time it got to your parent that your parent does it less than their parent before them. And then you're going to do it less than your parent did. And then your children, and so on and so forth in the future. So you're part of that healing of that cyclic pattern. But to do that, you have to want to choose healing and wholeness. You don't have to know how it's going to resolve, but it's like, in this situation, okay, I'm having this thought again. How do I bring this to healing? How do I bring this to wholeness? Again, you don't have to forgive. You just have to have a desire to want to heal the cyclic pattern, which may not happen for lifetimes in the future. But do you get what I'm saying? All right. So this is the curveball. Now, so let's say there's a murder in your family line. Oh my God, I had a conversation with Spirit. This blew my mind. So then what Spirit said was, okay, so let's say 10 generations back, you had a family member that murdered several people. That family member ends up, so the victims of the violent crime that caused their death, the murderer now has to take on all their karmic debt. I was like, whoa. So if I think about just my life, I can imagine in all my generational lines, I've probably had murderers back there. And now I'm taking on not only their karma of their murder, but now the victims' karmas from all their generations. No wonder it takes us thousands of years to change the past. So I'm telling you, it makes me really want to behave, but most people don't think like that. Like I was teaching in Kathmandu, Nepal, and they have a teaching there. My friend told me that if you're a teacher and you teach the student the wrong way, or you tell the student how to do something your way, but it's not the traditional or accurate way, then you have to take on the student's karmic debt. So if you think about that from a teacher's point of view, you want to get your stuff straight. Oh, wow. So Warrior Girl's saying the Native Americans that live near her believe that if you take another person's life, you do have to take on their karma. So thanks for the validation. I just hear it from Spirit. So, all right. So what if this is true? Would it stop the murderer from murdering? Probably not, because usually the murderer is in a very unconscious state. So blame can keep things stuck. So I just want to say that. All right. So I just want you all to kind of embrace, just really ponder, really and think about whether you want to embrace unity involves respecting diverse perspectives or enforces conformity. So These are just the ways you want to start looking at your life. So breaking the karmic patterns. Oh my goodness. I always think doctorate level teaching in 30 minutes. You can do it too. Okay, so back to Kathleen's question. So can we heal this, or do we have to live through it at the 3D level? So my teacher taught me that when my spirit, when I'm living fully embodied in my body, I am functioning off present moment cycles. So whatever is happening now, I take action now, I take the next step. The next event happens, I make a present, fully present, conscious, spiritually conscious decision that helps me take the next step. I am not influenced by the karmic cyclic patterns of the world. All right. However, if I'm out of my body, if I'm floating above my body, then I am 100% influenced by karmic patterns of the entire world and the entire universe. So when I learned that, I became even more encouraged to ground and be more in my body, because I lived a good portion of my life being battered around by the circumstances of my environment. How many of you have been battered around by the circumstances of your environment, the family cyclic patterns, the governmental patterns, the patterns of history? So as you come into the body, and that's where you can keep your rudder in the water going in the direction that you wish to go. So then spirit talk. So that's one thing. Number two, for Kathleen's great question for all of you, is what spirit told me are, there are those that heal from the outside in, and there are those of you who are going to heal from the inside out. And, I think about Rebecca Fountain, say, run out crying. So when you're running out crying, you're allowing the outside environments to influence how you're feeling on the inside. And so for those, I'm just going to be pretty direct, and I'm going to kind of exaggerate a little bit to make a point. So if you don't meditate at all, your energies are all over the place, life is going to kick your butt. It just is, because you're going to be influenced by your neighbor. You're going to be influenced by the people at school. You're going to be influenced by people at work. You're going to be influenced by a movie on television. I mean, yesterday, Yvonne and I, we kept looking at each other like, what is happening? What's happening? Like, there was this accelerated intensity. But we talked about it, that we both managed to stay well grounded. We could feel this intensity start about 4 hours before it happened. And then there was a shooting just one block away. A guy with a gun in apartment buildings threatening to shoot everybody in the apartment building. We could feel the intensity. We could feel the action step of that starting to happen 4 hours before the event actually happened. So if you are not meditating on a regular basis and you're not grounded, you're going to be influenced by the chaotic energy that was building. Now, so you're changing from the outside in, and that's totally acceptable way of learning. But if you go into meditation on a regular basis, or if you're feeling off kilter, stop, go into meditation, shift yourself on the inside. Guess what? You send centered, grounded, awakened consciousness frequency out into the world, and you influence the world, your environment around you. Everybody calms and feels peaceful. So I don't know which ticket you're buying to the movie, but I would buy that one, because it's a much easier way to live. And guess what? You can change the karmic patterns at the global level from that state. But let's go back to Ukraine. Let's go back to Russia. In the beginning, I wanted to offer healing to Ukraine because, right, Ukraine's the victim in my book. And I was told I couldn't because they needed to resolve some karmic patterns. Now I'm told that I can start bringing in healing energy to help both sides in that karmic dilemma of war. So it's the same with politics. Ooh, did I really want to interfere by sending a lot of healing energy? And I was told, nope, they got to work out some karmic patterns. You can't interfere, or they might miss the doorway of surpassing that karmic cycle. Now I'm being told that I can start to help heal it. So, how does that sound? Is that making any sense? Oh my gosh. Let's go into the meditation. So, I'm sure it makes a lot of sense, most sense to most of you, and not a lot of sense to some of you, but we're creating the language for the future, and I love inspiring curiosity in you. So I hope that it inspires curiosity. So we're just going to do a brief little centering meditation. We're going to bring all of our karmic patterns into this present moment to be what are ready to be healed and released will be released. So you're ready to release some karmic patterns. All right, go ahead and close your eyes and turn within. And I can feel the excitement of your spirits out there. Your body might be a little nervous, but your spirits are super excited for you to have this information. Say hello to your body, say hello to your spirit. And be excited and tell yourself, oh my gosh, I get to ground and center my spirit inside my body right now. So it's like, whoa, I'm excited. I get to ground and center my spirit within my human body right now so that I can live within the present moment. So go ahead and imagine yourself grounded. And if you're new to grounding, just pretend like there's an energetic tree and its roots are going to go all the way down to the core of the center of the earth and wrap around that magnetic um, ball that's at the center. Go ahead and ground yourself by imagining a tree with roots or any other image you choose to work with. Your grounding not only functions as stability, it's a stabilizing force for your energy field so that even if there's a shooting down the street, you can still remain grounded. But when that shooting happens and the fear comes up, it functions as a drain as well to release any of the energy that's in your aura that has just kind of stuck and stagnant there. Just let your vibe go up and let just whatever is stuck in your field drain down your grounding cord. Now choose whatever cosmic color you wish. It could be gold or silver or blue or green or yellow or pink or purple or orange, whatever cosmic color, or maybe you want a rainbow of colors. But right now, if you have the capacity to do anything that you set your mind to calling in healing cosmic energies to begin infusing your entire human auric field, flowing down your grounding, because that's going to help release and rinse as these karmic patterns dissolve. So let's bring in that cosmic energy first. Now, just talk to your spirit and set your intention. If I have any old, outdated, karmic, cyclic patterns that are ready to be healed and released, I ask them to come fully present now in this moment. Say today's date and your current age. I'm going to dissolve those cyclic patterns of karma with this cosmic light right down my grounding to be recycled into pure energy again. So just if I have any old, outdated karmic patterns, I bring them fully into this present moment to be healed by this divine light and dissolved down my grounding. Anywhere you are feeling releases happening, maybe it's off the top of your head, the back of your neck, maybe it's in your stomach, your chest, your legs. You are feeling stuck karmic patterns from those places dissolving and releasing. All right, there we go. That's very quick. You do not have to stop here. Once this live teaching is over, you can go right back to just running that energy and dissolving that those karmic patterns. So go ahead and open your eyes and move your body around. And I've got a class coming up to teach in 10 minutes, so I've already run over, so I'm going to just try to wrap this up pretty quickly. So taking action for you today is starting to notice this behavior that I do now, how is it going to impact me tomorrow? How's it going to impact me the next day? How's it going to impact the 7 generations ahead of me? How am I being impacted by the 7 generations behind me? Am I carrying on the karmic cyclic patterns of my mother or my father or my grandparents? Start to kind of become a little bit more conscious and recognize that. And then if you do notice the turmoil and the drama and the crisis happening in the world right now, and I don't know how you couldn't notice it, try to just once in a while look at it from a different perspective to get spiritually excited that karmic patterns of the collective wound are being healed, that those patterns are being healed. And then you can offer your own healing in any way that you're called to. So the other thing is the fall equinox registration is open. You can find the link in the description below. All right, everyone, have a fantastic, fantastic week. I am going to be giving a talk on Saturday Live about the blue light, so you can tune back in here as well to listen to that at 8 a.m. Pacific time. So take care and have an awesome, awesome day. Bye-bye.